Hello, and welcome to the Everyday Business Problems Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Chrysler. Each episode, we talk to business owners and leaders to learn about their story, their business, the challenges they've overcome, and the challenges they still face. You'll hear fresh insights, real talk, and get inspiration to grow your business. Hey, everybody. So excited to welcome Lori Highby today to the podcast. Lori is a podcast host, speaker, educator, and founder of Keystone Click, which is a strategic digital marketing agency. Using her vast multi-industry knowledge gained from experience and education, she has the ability to see potential of greatness within the already established good of a business. Through strategic actionable moves, she has worked with Fortune 500 companies such as ABB and Syngenta to micro business owners to achieve their marketing goals. Lori carries her energy and drive into her professional engagements in order to empower and educate other fellow lifelong learners. Hey, Lori, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today. Super excited to get into this conversation with you today.
David, really excited to be here. I appreciate the invite, and I hope I can share some awesome information to your listeners and viewers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. I have no doubt that you'll be able to share some fantastic insights. So let's get right into it. I really am curious to kind of get, we're talking customer journey today. So I'm really kind of curious, just at a high level for people that may not be familiar with the term, what does it really mean to you when we're talking about customer journey?
So regardless if it's B2B, business to business, or B2C, business to consumer, there's this kind of evolution before an actual transaction takes place. And it starts with understanding where you are today. What is the biggest pain that someone is experiencing? And actually, before I go really deep into it, I've got a quick story that's going to help illustrate this very well.
Oh, perfect. I love that.
I call it my vacuum story. So a few years back, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, my husband and I, happily married many, many years now, we needed a new vacuum. And I believe when we got married, it was just kind of a hand-me-down, or it's, the ones that when we merged households, whatever, it's just like, this thing is just not doing its job anymore. So what's the first thing that we do? We go to Google, right? What are the best vacuums that are out there? We learn all these different options I didn't even know existed, hardwood and carpet and dog hair and whatever. And then they're freaking expensive too. So I'm not just going to go randomly buy one willy-nilly. I'm doing my homework. So I learned that, I've got hardwood, I've got dogs, I've got carpet, and there's one that can do all of it. No way. So I'm going to watch some videos and see what, does it actually do what it says it's going to do? And then my husband posted on Facebook, hey friends, we're looking for a new vacuum. What do you recommend? And no joke, within 24 hours, we had over 42 comments on that post, telling us the Dyson, the Shark, whatever, the iRobot thingy. I don't even know what that's called.
Yeah.
And then, we collected all this different information. We did our homework too, reading different reviews that other people had online. And we kind of subconsciously made the decision that we're going to buy the Shark. And here's what's really interesting is we did all of our research online, everything. And then one day randomly we were in Farm and Fleet, which is a local store in Wisconsin here. And the Shark happened to be on sale. So I bought it. But what I'm illustrating here is that there's a process. We identified that we had a need. We are aware that we had to make a change because the vacuum that we had, the pain that we had was that it wasn't really performing its job. So then we did some high level searching. What are the options in front of us? We had some consideration, we kind of weighed it down to about 2 or 3 different options. And then ultimately we took action. But that was after getting insights and feedback from our peers as well, that we felt comfortable and confident enough in that buying decision. And then we had a positive experience after we bought it. And that's, I'm like, holy cow, this thing actually does what it says it's going to do. This is amazing. So now I'm happy to talk about it and I'm an advocate for it. And so the way that I really look at that customer journey is 5 steps. It's that awareness. You have to let people know you exist. I didn't know what the shark was until I started down this process. The consideration, and that's really, and I'm just, I guess, advocating for the shark here. The consideration of, well, is it the Dyson or is it the shark? Which one? And really letting the consumer do their research and make their decision based on what's going to help solve that problem the best. And then taking that action and really, kudos to that store for having the product on sale at the time I happened to be in the store, because that was the reason I moved forward. And that's not necessarily what I'm saying is you always have to have stuff on sale. It was just right place, right time, right message for this customer right here. Have a positive experience, because really a positive experience is going to bring people back. And then it's going to create that next step, which is that advocacy, and have your customers actually raving about you so that other people want to experience them. So when someone else is at that awareness stage, I'm advocating, saying, yes, this is the positive experience that I had.
Yeah, I really love that. I mean, stories are so great to illustrate kind of, real world points and tie it back. One thing that kind of jumps into my mind, and I think is a struggle for a lot of businesses, especially that are B2B, is how do you take the example of what you just laid out from, the vacuum story into that B2B space? Because I think a lot of business owners think, well, yeah, I get it there, but we're really different. Our customers, are XYZ, fill in the blank. So how for you, how do you explain that to business owners that the customer journey, it doesn't matter if it's B2C, like your story, or if you're B2B, your customer, no matter who they are, still goes through those steps that you illustrated. And do you have something to kind of tie that to people that give you the, yeah, but
100%. And I love that you asked this. So the story I illustrated is B2C, because that's something that anyone and everyone can easily relate to. It's so much easier, instead of me, talking really deep about sourcing the plastics for plastic injection molding, not everyone's going to understand that story. But fascinating enough, Google actually conducted some research on the B2B buyer customer journey process, and it aligns exactly to this. I mean, it's first, there's an initial, I have a pain that I'm experiencing. How do I solve this? Can I do it myself? Most people are DIY. How do I fix this? Do I need to just hire someone real quick? Do I need to buy a new piece of equipment? Do I need to outsource this? Looking at my options. They're weighing the options. They're watching videos, and 100% B2B buyers are watching videos. They're reading the reviews that other people have had. So this is why Google reviews, or, whatever industry you're in, there's always some sort of reviews, but that's because as consumers, we've learned over the last maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I don't know exactly what that number is anymore, to look at other people's experiences in order to help inform us to make an educated buying decision. Whenever we go out to, find a new restaurant in town, we read the reviews that other people have had. If we're going to take a Caribbean vacation, we read the reviews of the resorts, or the cruise lines, whatever it is. And that's, we've just trained ourselves that that's how we make a buying decision. And it's carried over into the B2B space. And then we're asking our network. I mean, look at Facebook made a specific component that's like seeking recommendations, and actually changes the whole format of your post, because it's such a standard way of using that tool. I mean, this happens all over the place, and in the B2B space, on LinkedIn, and even just, conversationally in an email. Who do you recommend for this? Or do you know someone that can do that? And that's happening before they even actually fill out your contact form or call or, ask for a quote. They've done all of this research on you before they're actually ready to engage you. And that's why it's so important from a digital marketing perspective to understand that you need to show up at all of these stages. You need to be there and provide resource and valuable information when they just are at the stage of, I have a problem and I don't know how to solve it. And you just tell them, this is how you solve it. You give them some options. You have some videos. You advocate for the people that are raving fans to write reviews and become those advocates for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love what you said about showing up, because so often in the B2B space, it seems like we miss out on opportunities, right? And that could be opportunities to educate through content. But more often, I see opportunities missed on the engagement side of things. So, back to your point about reviews, nobody wants to have a negative review, but I know as a consumer, a lot of times that's what I look for. I'd like to read that because I want to see what the situation was. I also would love to see how that particular business resolved it, like in the case of a bad restaurant experience or a bad trip experience or something like that. I want to know that the business in that particular case, somebody, yeah, obviously sometimes there's unrealistic expectations, but by and large, when people take the time to go and write a review, positive or negative, they're doing it to try to prompt some sort of response. So knowing that a business then, goes ahead and actually addresses the situation and kind of lays out what, a resolution was, I think that's important. And I do think that ends up being a miss from time to time for a lot of businesses. I don't want to get too deep in that, but I'd love to get just your quick takeaway from that standpoint. And then I'd really want to take a deep dive into customer journey.
Yeah. So reviews, 100%. I think a lot of businesses are missing that opportunity. And if you've got a raving client, raving fan, they keep repeat buying, or you hear them say amazing things, it's all you have to do is ask, would you mind writing a review for us? Or can we use this as a testimonial or a case study or something along those lines? And they're gonna, if they're an advocate, they're gonna do it. There's no doubt about that. A best practice, though, regardless if it's negative or positive, is to acknowledge those reviews publicly, so that you're not just seen as someone that's trying to clean up the negative ones, but you're actually seen as someone that's actively engaging with your audience. So if someone does write a positive review, say, hey, thanks so much. I'm really glad that you had a great experience with us, or that the product is serving its purpose. If it's a negative review, try to actually move the conversation offline, publicly acknowledge that, sorry, you had such a negative experience, or I'm really interested in learning more about the experience. Please call me at, and then, put your contact information, so that at least publicly people can see that you are genuinely interested in solving the problem. And actually that can help you to get that negative review converted to a positive or just removed.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And it's really difficult sometimes to get people on board with that. So I appreciate you jumping in and adding to it. Because again, another great opportunity to, engage, to understand your customer's journey and what they've experienced, right? So if you're not interacting and engaging with that, it can be a challenge for you to really have a deep understanding. So getting back to customer journey specifically and kind of taking a deep dive into it, I know that you guys do a lot of strategy around digital marketing. So the real question is, a little bit of the chicken and egg, right? What comes first? What's more important, to understand the customer journey deeply and how deep? Or can you start doing some strategy without really, or with having a higher level, I should say, understanding of that customer journey? What's that like for you?
Yeah, I'm always an advocate for building a plan. I mean, you have a very clearly defined goal that you're trying to achieve. We all do. At least, really good business owners have a goal that they're trying to achieve, I would say. And you know what it is that you want to do, and you know where you are today. And I always equate this to a GPS device. You know where you want to get, you plug in the destination. The device is saying, this is where you are today. And it's actually giving you a couple of options. It's identifying detours and road hazards or whatever. And sometimes you're halfway there, and then there is a detour that shows up randomly. So, that's just a good analogy of marketing strategy in general and marketing in general. But the only reason that you've got that plan mapped out is because it's a very clearly defined, this is where I want to be, and evaluating and understanding where you are today. And that's what research is going to tell you, is saying, where are you from a standpoint of how are you positioned? How do your customers react to you now and respond to you? What perspective do they have from you? But going back to that customer journey and really understanding that first step, what is the pain that customer has that you're ultimately the solution for? That research is going to tell you, how are they searching for that? How are they thinking about that? What is the language and the message that they're actually communicating internally or typing into Google? Or if they saw something online, like an email subject line, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is me, I have to open this right now. The better that you can understand how they're thinking and get inside your head, the better then that you can craft that messaging so that they click on that link in Google, they open the email, they read the social media post, whatever it is. That's why it's so important to really understand your customer before you invest the time and energy in creating this content, because otherwise you're just making assumptions. And we all know what happens when you make assumptions.
Right. I'm glad you ended with that. But no, that's just so much gold in what you just said there, because, I think too often it gets back to I'm going to try something, and the trial and error method, while over the course of time may be useful, it's really, if you just take a little bit of time on the front end of things to understand, to your point, to understand how your customers are seeking the information, how they're talking about it, those are the ways that you're going to ultimately be able to take that trial and error time and reduce it significantly, because you're speaking their language, you're understanding where they're at in that buying journey, and ultimately be able to craft resources that not only kind of cut right through everything else. Because again, and talk about this if you would, Lori, I'd love to kind of get your takeaway. Everybody talks about, digital marketing and the stuff that you've got to do, but it's what is really difficult with that is, cutting through the noise and making yourself stand out. So by understanding that customer journey, how are you catapulting yourself as a business ahead of your competitors?
Well, getting really clear, great question, by the way, getting really clear on that audience and who is it that you want to be attracting to your business. Not just saying, like I had a massage therapist. I'm like, who is your ideal customer? Well, anyone that has skin. Well, okay, that's not realistic, because then we're just shooting blindly. If you're trying to hit the masses, you're going to hit nobody. But if you're getting really laser focused and saying, this is a type of customer that we love working with, it's very profitable, and we excel at this type of work. So you want that type of customer to come into you. And so the better that you can get clear on who that customer is, the better that you can invest that time to really understand that specific pain. So maybe it's a specific industry, it's a specific problem that you can solve, and you are the best at solving it. But understanding how that pain is communicated or thought through in that customer is what's going to help you stand out, because you're going to use, instead of, I'm going to try to go back to the vacuum story here. Instead of just saying we have vacuums for all houses, what really caught my eye is hardwood, carpet, and dog hair. Like those were the three things that to me, oh my gosh, yes, those check all my boxes. I'm in. I need to learn more about this thing.
Yeah, that's a great point, because, one of the things, and I'll be honest, right? I did this in my own business, and it's a struggle for a lot of people. I think the struggle is when you go narrow, you're now limiting yourself to opportunities, right? That's just kind of, you feel that when you say, oh, well, I really want to dial in, so I'm limiting my opportunities for potential income. And in reality, to your exact point about the vacuum cleaner, you would probably be so disinterested in a vacuum cleaner company that said, hey, if you got a house, we've got your solution.
Yeah.
Like, because you would have no idea. Well, what are they talking about? Are they talking about, one of those vacuums that has the mop integrated to it? Like, are they talking about a mop? Because I really need a vacuum. And you'd be left saying, forget it. I'm going to go look at somebody else. And again, I think it's such a challenge for any business owner. You said massage therapist. I'm a business consultant, right? I think it's a challenge for any business owner that hasn't been able to figure that out and hasn't really narrowed down and can answer that question quickly. to do that. So I really love that you brought that up, because I think it's something a lot of business owners struggle with.
Sure. Oh, I struggle with it too. And I am trying to practice what I preach in that sense. But yes, a massage therapist can massage anyone with skin, and really most vacuums on the market can probably service its purpose in my house. But and there's nothing wrong with that. But niching allows you to attract that right type of customer. And we all know that we've brought in that wrong customer. We just did it because yeah, we can help them. We'll figure it out. We're going to do this. And then at the end of the day, was that profitable? We spent more time learning how to do it as opposed to actually doing it well. And,
Yes.
Is the client even happy? Did we give them a positive experience? Are they now advocates for us? All of these things on the customer journey. Focus on the areas that we excel at. And then that's going to allow you to get those raving fans that are going to be advocates and bring more of that type of ideal customer to you. Now, That being said, just because, we really focus on the B2B industrial manufacturers is who we are actively pursuing. But if someone comes to me, we actually do a lot of websites in the education space. I'm not actively going after that. I know I can do it, and I know I can do it well. But if someone came to me and said, can you help me with my website? I'm going to evaluate it and see, can we fulfill the need that they have? And if the answer is yes, then yes. I'm not saying no just because they're not in my niche, but my messaging, my outward messaging is speaking to that B2B industrial manufacturing audience.
Yeah, I love that. It doesn't, just because you're willing to say out loud who you really want to go after doesn't mean that it's limiting you in terms of the opportunities that come your way. So I really love that. So now that we know how important, understanding your customer's journey is, let's maybe shift a little bit and talk about some of the tools that people can use to help them identify a little bit more of the detail beyond kind of the initial steps that you outlined. Are there any tools that are out there and kind of readily accessible that would be a good starting point if people wanted to get deeper before they came and engaged somebody like you and you started firing all these questions off at them?
There's a ton of them. Really going and understanding and evaluating where you are is probably the first thing I'd recommend. And that's stuff that you should already have, your Google Analytics on your website. And at the very least, just understanding how people are finding you right now. And one of my favorite websites to share with people is it's escaping me this very second. That's not good. Here it is. All right. Answerthepublic.com. So basically this website, you type in your offering, we'll say, and it's going to show up basically a huge list of all the questions that have been typed into Google related to your offering. So if I typed in manufacturing, it's going to ask all the questions related to manufacturing. So it's going to give me some direction on how are people actually searching for this specific item. There's a SEMrush.com is a tool that's great for search engine purposes. But what I like about this tool specifically is, and we have is a paid tool, but they have some free resources as well. Within the paid account, they have this component that says questions asked. So basically, again, you type in that phrase from a keyword positioning, how are you showing up in Google? But it's also showing you then the specific questions that people are asking. And think about your own Googling efforts. It's more times than not, it's related to a question. And that's usually when it's that initial pain. How do I do this? Why is this happening? What's the difference between X and Z? So understanding those FAQs and even a simple exercise that I always advocate for the next week, just write down every single question that someone has asked you related to the business. Every time someone asks you a question related to your offering, write it down and ask other people in different departments, in the shipping department, the customer service, the sales, have them all do that. And you're just going to have this huge list of questions and you're going to understand and really understand the language that they're using and how they're asking it to help so that you can then create content that's answering those questions.
Yeah, that's really great. I think, often we can not utilize all the resources at our fingertips. So I love one of the things that I love that you brought up is, getting everybody involved, right? The larger of an operation that you have, especially when we start talking about, industrial manufacturers, there's so many different touch points. When I was in that space, kind of actively working in that space, it was oftentimes, I'm responsible for a facility, but one of the best ways to learn anything about what's going on in a facility like that is go talk to your shipping people, right? Go talk to your delivery drivers, the people that have that final touch with the product, that are either seeing it before it goes out to the door to your customers, or that are actually hand delivering it. It used to be amazing how delivery drivers could get anywhere within a one of your customers, where a salesperson, somebody whose sole responsibility it was to get past gatekeepers, they couldn't get in anywhere. So you could get some of your best information from the people that were delivering your products, and I feel like often that can be overlooked. So that's a really great example and idea that you shared there. And some of those other tools too. I've been on Answer the Public before, and I know that that's a very powerful website. So appreciate you sharing those things. So what would you say, people in your experience, businesses, people get wrong when it comes to the customer journey? Is it just stopping short of really understanding, not going deep enough? What have you seen people get wrong? And then kind of obviously, what is the result of that? And again, how can we move past that to get helpful information to really move the needle for people?
Oh, how much time do we have? As soon as you said that, my list just my head just started rambling all these things off. I would say the first thing that people get wrong is just making assumptions and just like, oh, I know my customer. And I have so many stories that I can share with you with regards to, what we do is when we work with our clients, we actually interview some of their customers. We interview the customers that they're like, man, I wish I had 10 of these. And the reason we do that is so that we can get inside their head and understand the language that they're using. But a great example, one of the customers that we interviewed, one of our clients' customers that we interviewed fairly recently, we asked them, why do they keep buying from this client? Why do they keep coming back? And their response was, well, first I'll say the client thought people kept buying from them because they're fast and they're cheap, and they don't want to be viewed that way, but that's just their assumption. All of the customers that we interviewed did not answer that. They said they came back because of the level of customer service that the company provides. So they've been in business for 40 years, and they thought the reason people come and buy from them is because they're fast and they're cheap. That's
unbelievable.
So important. Yes. Don't make assumptions.
Is gold. Yeah, this is gold because, from my standpoint, take that one step further, right? They're out in the marketplace going for fast and cheap when how many, profit percentage points are they leaving on the table because they have amazing customer service?
Exactly. So you change your whole messaging around, your whole strategy around, and you attract other people where customer service is extremely important to them. And they respect that and they're willing to pay for it. That's huge. Let's see. Which one do I want to go on next? Another challenge that I see, and this is more on the digital front, is really investing in the website. And I obviously I'm going to be biased on this because this is what we do, but I've been doing websites for 20 years now. And there's definitely an art and a science to this. And all the DIY sites or the sites that have been around for 15 years. And, a lot of manufacturers are saying, well, I don't get any business of my site. Well, it's because you haven't touched it for 15 years. But it's not just throw a brochure up there. There is definitely a message and a craft to the messaging. And it's understanding that language. So when someone lands there, you want them to go, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And not just, oh, another person that makes X, another widget supplier. You don't want that. You want them that ideal customer to land there and feel like this is what I've been looking for my whole life. I found the solution to the problem that I have. and showing any sort of trust or credibility, proving that you can actually do this is extremely important as well. And then this is the part that really gets me is we're so inundated with constant flashing objects and something else to do that we as humans need to physically be told what the next step is. Your call to action. If someone, and I've been at a number of sites where I'm like, yes, this is what I'm looking for, but I don't know how do I buy this? How do I get a quote? What is the process in working with this company? So you really just have to make it as easy as possible for that ideal customer to be able to take that next step and actually start engaging with you. And there's so many missed opportunities in that customer journey. And if you make it hard for someone to take that next step in that journey and learning how to work with you, they're less likely to proceed forward and actually start working with you.
Yeah, I mean, something as simple as, having the call to action in multiple spots and multiple sections and consistently too, right? Because you go to a lot of different websites, and I know you know this, but for the listeners and viewers out there, if you look at your website and even if you have multiple calls to action, it can be confusing. Well, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to schedule a meeting? Are we supposed to, let's talk? Am I supposed to learn more? It can be very confusing for people. And to your point, our short attention span these days, you have to make things crystal clear. I had seen something, this was a while ago, about, eliminating or trying to get to the point where you can eliminate, 60% of the words on your website, and how conversions just skyrocket when you're able to do things like that. Because again, you're looking for those, short snippets and connection points to move the needle, not necessarily, well, we've been around for 100 years, and the brochure, the brochure, kind of reincarnated on the website.
Yep, and don't put your big building on the web homepage of the site. Nobody cares.
Yeah, nobody cares, right? And that's hard in this space too, because there is a lot of pride in manufacturing in general. And, again, but this is why I think conversations like this become so valuable to people, because it is different now. Marketing and branding is different. It is very much about not talking to people, but inviting them in and, sharing stories and giving them the value when they need it. Nobody's out there. Again, we have so much information coming to us. Nobody wants to be talked at all the time, hey, buy my XYZ, buy my XYZ. It's like, no, nobody cares about that. If you have a sales team out on LinkedIn, let's say, encourage them to talk about other things other than just how great your products are, get them to share content and get them to share personal stuff. Because again, I really love your example about, customer service for that one business being the reason that their clients are purchasing from them. It's like, people buy from people. That's the end, right? People buy from people. And so when you can make somebody feel as though they're welcome into, your environment and it serves the needs that they're looking for, they're going to feel pretty good about that. So, yeah. So Lori, kind of wrapping up here, do you have any final thoughts, closing advice that you would give to somebody that is, struggling to see conversions on their website or struggling with their social media marketing strategy? Any closing advice for people when it comes to those things in customer journey?
Well, the first thing would be to call me. That's definitely something, an area obviously we can support with. But I would say, look at the data. The data is going to tell an amazing story. And if you're looking at your Google Analytics, you can see where someone entered your site and where someone exited your site. And if there's a constant trend that everyone leaves on this page but doesn't take that next step, then that's giving you some direction as to maybe something needs to be fixed on this page. But I would 100% advocate for investing the time and energy to really get inside the head of that ideal customer, get really clear on who it is that you want to be attracting to do business with you. and then understand what is that message that you need to be pushing out there that's going to pull them in and want to be doing business with you. It does take time. It's a process. It's an art and a science, as I mentioned earlier, but it's worth it. It's worth taking the time to step back and get really clear on what you need to be communicating and where you need to be communicating it. So then you can just see that huge growth that's going to happen.
Yeah, I love that. And for people that want to connect with you, Lori, what's the best way for people to find you?
Well, KeystoneClick.com is our business. I also share tons of information on LinkedIn. Just search for Lori Highby. I post probably almost every single day, marketing tips and tricks. And I've got a podcast called Social Capital, where I interview professionals globally on the topic of networking.
Awesome. Well, I love that. I will make sure to put all of that into the show notes for people. And again, Lori, I want to thank you for coming on the Everyday Business Problems podcast and sharing all of this knowledge as it relates to customer journey. Super fascinating, tons of insights. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, this was super fun, and I love sharing it. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much for listening today. If we brought you any value, please rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. Also, be sure to connect with us on social media by searching @The Chrysler Club. Until next week, I'm your host, Dave Chrysler.